What's going on, Raider Nation? It's your boy True Raider coming at you with another podcast. Now, I'm gonna be straight with you guys. This is my first time doing live, so bear with me a little bit, man. I'm just trying to get used to, how all this thing works when trying to put on a live show. So today, what I really want to talk about is the last 10 years of first round picks uh, that the Raiders and Tom Telesco have taken. So we're going to go ahead and dive in right away. I see that we only got one in the room right now. Shout out to you. I'm glad you're here. We'll see if some other people jump on here shortly. All right, so let me see real quick. I'm going to share the screen because what I want to look at, I was trying to put together just some stuff from the last 10 years, right? Real quick, hold up. All right. So let's see, is that even visible? Okay, there we go. All right, so what we're looking at here is I compiled just the last 10 years worth of picks for the Raiders and the last 10 years worth of picks for the Chargers. Now, the first thing that pops out to me on here is I put who's still on the roster, right? And when we look at the Raiders, we got a lot of people not on the roster. Colton Miller is the only player who is still actively on our roster. So if you look down here at the Chargers, we have Quentin Johnson still on the roster, Zion Johnson still on the roster, Rashawn Slater still on the roster, Justin Herbert still on the roster, Derwin James is still on the roster, Joey Bosa is still on the roster. So that's what 6 players out of the last 10 years, right? And that's baffling to me, right? Because we only have one active player. Not to say that none of our players actually kind of panned out or really did much, but they're not on our roster, so it doesn't matter where they're at right now in the NFL. So, really last year's first round pick, let's start there, Tyree Wilson, to be determined. So that's to be determined because he really had a slow start. I wasn't excited about that pick. I really wanted to see us pick Carter, and get that interior defensive lineman, but that's not what happened, right? We picked up Tyree Wilson, and I was a little skeptical because, he was coming off that injury. He wasn't quite healthy, and that really showed early on in the season. He was really slow to get off on the snap. His stats weren't really showing. He wasn't really having much production at all. As the season went on, especially once Antonio Pierce came in, some things started to change for him. He started to get more in his groove. It seemed like his injury was doing a little bit better, and he was being, getting up to NFL speed. In those last several games, he did start doing actually pretty well. I did see a breakdown comparison of stats, for Tyree Wilson and Carter on the Eagles. His first name is slipping me right now. And they were showing that his stats starting from when Antonio Pierce came in compared to Carter's during those games, right? And during those games, they were actually pretty comparable. Carter's stats were still a little bit better, and it looked like he had more of an impact. But we did see an increase in production for Tyree Wilson towards the end of the season. So this is listed as to be determined because you can't really say he's a bust yet. This next year he's going in, he's going to be healthy, he's going to have a full training camp. I really think that we're going to see some good things out of Tyree Wilson. I did, he did move to interior line at some point during the season. And, and at that point, we really started seeing a lot more production out of him because a lot of his skill set, he doesn't have a lot of moves. He has a lot of power rush, and being on the interior line, that was working out a lot better. And Malcolm Kuntz got an opportunity to really start to shine during that time. So, with Tyree Wilson, there's a lot of people are speculating like, is Tyree Wilson going to start as an interior line, or is he going to rotate with Malcolm Kuntz on the outside? And John Jenkins and Adams they were doing great last year, and it would be hard to see Tyree Wilson really taking that spot, and so I'm feeling that he's going to be a little bit more on the outside, but there are some different kind of packages that can get put together that include Tyree Wilson, or maybe swapping him in and out with Kuntz. That way, you always have fresh legs out there on the field. Now, in 2022, we had no first round pick. Over here, we had uh, because of the Devonte Adams trade. Now, I'm not really upset about that at all. I like having Devonte Adams on our team. He's had good production, even though it hasn't been what he expects it to be, or really what most of us Raider fans really expect it to be. But also, in 2 years, he's had five quarterbacks. Five. He had Derek Carr, and then Derek Carr got benched. Then he had Jarrett Stidham, and then the following year, they moved on from Carr and they moved on from Stidham. He went to the Broncos, and then Adams was catching passes from Jimmy Garoppolo, and that was just, we all saw how that panned out. It didn't go well. And then he had Brian Hoyer, and then he had Aiden O'Connell, right? And so five quarterbacks in 2 years. That's really rough, and he's really, I mean, he even put out a post on his Instagram about Jaden Daniels, and it's just like, I see that he really wants to be able to pick up on a quarterback that's going to have some consistency, that he can really, play under the same quarterback for several years to come. And I really hope that we get to see that. Now, Alex Leatherwood, he was waived, right? He was waived after 1 year. And there's not a whole lot of breakdown or talking that I really have to go into Alex Leatherwood, just that we all know that Alex Leatherwood ain't leather, right? That is like not the guy. And that sucks, man. That was one of them picks that just, oops, we missed, right? Now we go down to 2020. We had two different first round picks that year. We had Henry Ruggs, which, pretty much we all know what happened, right? But if you don't know, halfway through the season, Henry Ruggs was leaving Top Golf. He was going like 120 some miles an hour, drunk, and rear-ended, a lady, and RIP, man, rest her soul, and ended up killing her and her dog. And he's now in prison, right? So even though Henry Ruggs was showing some really good production, he had a shaky rookie year, but his second year coming in, he was doing a fantastic job until he ended up getting arrested. And I would still classify that as a bust, because we lost out on him. So Devin Arnett was the other first round pick that year, and he was released after brandishing a gun and threatening to kill somebody, right? So there's two of our first round picks in 1 year that got released because of being arrested. Like, that's just nasty, man. That's just nasty. So then we go down over here to 2019, Clelin Ferrell. So Clelin Ferrell did not re-sign, right? And Clelin Ferrell was one of those guys that was actually on the same team with Christian Wilkins, right? And we ended up going with Clelin Ferrell instead of Christian Wilkins. And that did not turn out well for us. And now, while we know that Christian Wilkins really had a rough start in his first year, especially, but his first couple of years, he started picking up production. He started really getting up to NFL speed. And Clelin Ferrell was one of those guys that we just were not seeing the production out of him at all. Honestly, I didn't really follow him after we did not re-sign him. He did go over to 49ers. And honestly, I don't really know how well his production was out there. I did hear some stuff. There's 49er fans at my work that said that they liked him, but of course they're going to say that because everybody wants to feel like they won in those kind of scenarios. So you go down over here because we had 3 first rounders in 2019, right? And part of that was I believe part of the Khalil Mack trade. So Josh Jacobs, right? Josh Jacobs was an amazing back for us, and I really, really like, oh man, I see Jeffrey up in the chat, man. I'm trying to figure out how to use the chat from my computer. So I have my phone over here on the side so I can see the chat. I'm going to learn how to use these tools in a little bit, man, but Glad that you're here, Jeffrey. Shout out. I saw you earlier today on the Raider D podcast. Seems like you're like me, man. It's like anytime that I see a live stream or new content go out, I'm on it, man. I'm hooked on this stuff, man. um, so yeah, back to 2019, man. We had Josh Jacobs. He did really good. He had a couple injuries here and there. Production was up and down. We know that not this last season, but the season before, he was the rushing leader for the whole NFL. And then this last year, he didn't quite have the same production. I feel like a lot of that was due to, teams knew how to play Jimmy Garoppolo, and that was that they just put 8 in the box, and once they stack the box, they know he's not going to be able to throw outside the numbers, and it stopped the run game. And so it really set Josh Jacobs in a spot where he wasn't going to be able to see the same kind of production. Also, usually when a running back, gets the rushing title, they don't usually finish the whole season the next year, right? Usually they end up out on injury historically. And that's what ended up happening with Jacobs. Now, I'm not really sure if Jacobs was really that injured or not. Because I was looking at the situation and I thought, you know what? I bet you Josh Jacobs is going to go out with injury. That way he makes sure he doesn't get a severe injury. So, because he knew that he was going to need to sign with another team. And if he gets injured, that's going to hinder him, right? And so I think, honestly, that he was just sitting out, man. And that really is sad to see, but I understand, it's a business. He needs his money, and more power to him. Jonathan Abram. So Jonathan Abram was waived, right? And he did play through 4 years. We did not pick up the 5th-year option on him. And really, like, from what I saw, and I'm gonna be straight, man, like during this time with the Raiders, there was this point where I was just not really as engaged. I was one of those guys that was watching the highlights or catching a game if it was, if it was televised in my area, and I was kind of keeping up with some stats and things like that. And so I didn't really personally get to see a lot of that. Actually in 2020 I started working inside of a jail, right? And during this time, there was like I was trying to figure out stuff on to listen to on YouTube while I would work. And I ended up finding a Graphic Raider, and Wasted Talent was pretty new at that time. Chat Sports, some of these guys, and I started following them, and that's what really reignited flame for me, as a Raiders fan, and I really got back into the swing of things during 2020, and I've been really just on fire for it ever since. So Jonathan Abram was waived, right? The year before, 2018, Colton Miller. He is the only first round pick in the last 10 years that is still on our roster. And last year he was out with a little bit of injuries. And I've been kind of weighing out this whole idea of like, well, right now Colton Miller is worth a lot. And I don't know that he's going to continue to be worth a lot. If he starts having a bunch of injuries and things like that, getting a little bit older, I believe he's like 28. That's going to put us in this weird position where he's going to start losing value and production. And so there is the thought of packaging him with some picks to move up in this draft, or picking up on a second first rounder. Now, I don't know if that's really in our best interest. I know that there's a lot of tackles in this draft, but when you bring in a rookie tackle, you're usually going to see like great production out of them right away. They're going to do pretty good, but he'll be a developmental piece. And so really to lose Colton Miller right now might be really difficult. I'm just worried about losing him to injury or losing production on him. I think if we get some other good solid lineman in this draft, Colton Miller might stand a better chance if he has a little bit more support, but we'll see how that goes. Garyon Conley, man. So he was traded for a 3rd round pick. And I was looking back on stats on him, and his production was so. He did kind of okay. He was a cornerback. Just really didn't seem to be the guy that we really wanted. We didn't really get what we needed out of him. And so went ahead and moved him for some draft compensation, which is pretty good. to get a third rounder. But if you think about it, you spend a first round on somebody and then you only get a third rounder in return. That's not really that great. 2016, we had Carl Joseph. Now, Carl Joseph was a safety, and this is actually honestly not a name I was familiar with at all. And his stats really didn't pop out at me. They declined his 5th-year option, and he went on and signed somewhere else. Now, Amari Cooper, 2015 first round pick. Now, I really liked Amari Cooper. He's currently playing for the Browns, I believe. If I'm wrong on that, let me know in the chat. We actually traded him for a first round pick. Now, I believe that that's a good pickup. I don't really honestly remember all the drama that was going on with Amari Cooper that led to him getting traded, or if that was just one of those Gruden decisions. But I just remember when he left the team that I was upset about that, because it's like, all right, like, what does this look like? And being able to have, I believe we either picked up Henry Ruggs or Damon Arnett on that trade, if I'm not mistaken. And we lost that trade. That's all I can say is we lost that trade. Now, Khalil Mack was, our first rounder in 2014. Came out, amazing player. When John Gruden came in, he decided to move on from him because he got a pretty good haul for him, right? He got 2 first-round picks and 3 other picks. And I got to say, man, like, the production that Khalil Mack has continued to put out since then, that's another one that I believe we lost. I think it was the 2019 draft where we stacked some of them first round picks, and maybe we got Josh Jacobs off one of them. But really, Jonathan Abram, Cleveland Farrell, I would say that we lost that. We lost that trade. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about the Chargers with Tom Telesco's draft history from 2014 until the present. So we talked about it earlier, but we have several guys that are still on the roster, right? And I'll be honest with you, I don't follow the Chargers. If you look on my page, it says that I am not a football expert. I am simply just a Raiders fan, right? And so I'm not really paying attention to the Chargers unless we're playing them, right? Even though they're in our division, I like when I see things like that. They lost their running back, their tight end, and both their main receivers this offseason. I like seeing that kind of stuff. That makes me happy. So Quentin Johnson is still on their roster, and that doesn't really say a whole lot because they're letting all their good players go right now, except for Herbert, really. And they have a handful of good players on here that kind of stand out to me. But Quentin Johnson last year, I think, had like 400 and some receiving yards, not very productive. I don't think that they really felt the need to move on from him because he's not really a big cap hit, anything like that. Zion Johnson still on the roster. Rashawn Slater still on the roster. Justin Herbert, he's still on their roster. And right now, Jim Harbaugh is just talking him up, right? Saying so many great things about Herbert. And that might be true. But I'm not entirely convinced that he's going to stick with Herbert. I could see a scenario where he goes ahead and goes and gets his guy, J.J. McCarthy, in the draft at number 5 and sits him behind Herbert for like 1 or 2 years, right? And we see that happen. Aaron Rodgers did that. Jordan Love did that. Patrick Mahomes. Like, we see a lot of good quarterbacks sit for a season or 2, get up to NFL speed, and learn the playbook, and then they put them out there. So I could see a scenario where Justin Herbert doesn't stay on their roster for too much longer because he's making a ton of money. And while he is a good quarterback and productive, they could trade him away and get a pretty good haul for him, even though another team would have to pick up his contract and then move forward with their guy. Kenneth Murray from 2020 did not resign. We also see Jerry Tillery. He was waived. He ended up with us on the Raiders, which he's been waived this offseason. So he's no longer even with us. And I think a lot of that I mean, there was some production issues, but mostly there was some attitude issues, right? Um, I did like that game last season when he just ran up on Justin Herbert and like pushed him out of bounds. Because I was getting frustrated with Herbert too, because he was doing this thing where he was running up to the line of scrimmage and doing this like fake slide and then running. And when a quarterback is doing that, he's asking to just get smeared. So Jerry Tillery was obviously getting really frustrated with that as well. And he hit him, and it was a bad hit, and that penalty hurt us. But I understand. Our roster, Mike Williams, he was cut this offseason, which is, that's really great to me. He moved on. He's going to the Jets. He's had a lot of injury history. And really, let's see how he does on the turf out there with the Jets, man. I don't see that going very well for him. And then we got you know, Joey Bosa. Now, Joey Bosa is still on the roster. He's still very productive. Yeah, Jeffrey Harbaugh does love JJ McCarthy, right? And so I think that he's really talking up Herbert, and he's really putting it in position where he's still trying to let it be known that he wants to go that route, because I think he's hoping that nobody picks up his guy JJ in those first couple of picks. And there's been some speculation that JJ McCarthy's draft stock has really gone up, and that could be something that happens. But I could only hope, right? Because there's this speculation about the Commanders wanting JJ McCarthy or the Patriots wanting JJ McCarthy. And I would love for either of those teams to want to go for him instead of Jaden Daniels, because really, I really want Jaden Daniels. And I'll talk about that a little bit more, man. But Melvin Gordon, he ended up signing with the Broncos. And then Jason Verrett did not re-sign. Right. And so, another thing I don't know, man, like, when you have these players and they're just really not re-signing, or they're getting cut, what we see in our draft history, and okay, what we see in the Chargers is that they're holding on to these players, which give me some confidence that we go ahead and hold on to these picks, that Tom Telesco is going to pick up some proper guys, right? But if you look at the Raiders' history with first round picks, we really haven't held on to them. And so, like, to look at all those players that just have not stayed on our roster, to be able to move on from some picks that could potentially be players like that and end up with Jaden Daniels, for example. If you look at some of my videos, man, I'm Jaden Daniels, right? And that's not my only mindset, right? But what I've been watching happen on social media with other content creators is I think people are just kind of giving up on the idea of Jaden Daniels, right? And I don't blame them, man. It's, it at times it looks pretty grim, at times it looks pretty good, and we're getting a big old mixed bag on that. But like, really, out of all the options that we have for this offseason, I think picking up Jaden Daniels is our best option possible, right? We pick up Jaden Daniels. He really, the culture fit, the connection with Antonio Pierce. He's all friends with Jack Jones. Maybe we could convince Brandon Ayuk to come over, things like that, right? There's a lot of good that come from it. I think that once he comes to the NFL, he could really get in a position where he's learning how to slide, run out of bounds, and not take those big hits, man. Because like, there was this compilation that went out I saw it on Facebook, where it was saying that Jaden Daniels, every time that he gets hit, he looks like a Looney Tunes character, right? And it just showed all these big hits he was taking. And like, while he's not really lighter than most NFL quarterbacks, he's skinny framed. And I don't think that he's going to have the ability to take those kind of hits at the NFL level. So it's going to be really important to teach him some of those kind of things, to kind of not put himself in harm's way, right? Because we could end up with an Anthony Richardson where he gets injured right away, and then we traded all this draft capital for a guy that's injured, and then we're playing AOC and Gardner Minshew anyway, right? So I see a lot of issues with that, right? But I also think that if Jaden Daniels goes to the Las Vegas Raiders, we would see a lot more production out of him, a lot more spirit, and a lot more energy than we would if Jane Daniels ends up on the Commanders or the Patriots, right? I don't think that he's going to go over there. He'll go over there and I think he'll do good, right? And I'll be watching over there just going, dang, man, we could have had that guy. But I know that if he comes to the Las Vegas Raiders, it's going to be a whole lot better. Yeah, that injury worry with Jane Daniels is a big issue, man, that I see. Um, I think number two option for us is if we don't move up to get Jane Daniels, maybe they deem the price to be too high, right? Or maybe the decision that gets made there is, out of our hands. Maybe the Commanders don't want him, move back and they want him, right? Maybe the Patriots want him and they don't want to move back. Then we're put in this position where we have no choice. And what's our plan B? And Michael Penix Jr., there's been a lot of talk about him. He's really going up mock draft boards where people that are doing Raiders mock drafts are really selecting Michael Penix Jr. And I feel like that's where a lot of people have kind of settled, right? Now, before the offseason or early in the offseason, I was looking at Michael Penix Jr., right? And I was thinking, like, man, this guy is the guy. We need to go get this quarterback. And when he lost in the national championship against Michigan, I thought, man, that's good for us because his draft stock's going to drop. Maybe we could move back in the first, or a lot of mocks were showing him going in the second round. And I was pretty excited about, like, if we could pick up a Michael Penix Jr. in the second round, that would be amazing. The problem is that Michael Penix Jr., he's not going to drop to the second round. I don't see him. I don't think that he's the Will Levis of this year. Like they, man, there was some funny memes that came out of that, man. But Will Levis ended up falling to the second round last year. He ended up going to the Tennessee Titans, and I don't see that being Michael Penix Jr. I could see that being Bo Nix. I think that's going to happen to Bo Nix, but I don't think that's going to happen to Michael Penix Jr. And honestly, I don't know that he'll be there at 13. We got a lot of QB needy teams. If you look on my channel, I got a video that's, really just talks about the run on quarterbacks and all these, teams that need to pick up a QB this year. And so I really think that there's going to be at least 5 that go in the first 10 picks. And then there's other teams that are picking pretty early that might be looking to pick up a quarterback and put him on their roster and kind of groom him for a season or 2 seasons, and then put him in as their starter. So, because there's this thing that happens, right? Right now we're picking at 13, and people are saying, "Don't get a quarterback. Go get a right tackle, go get a cornerback." And now I would love that. We got some really good tackles that are going to be going in this first round. And then Terrion Arnold, there was footage of AP meeting with him. I personally love Keon Mitchell. That dude is a dog, man. Like them PUs that he had, like 18 in one season, like that's just insane. Like that's like Madden numbers, man. And so like being able to like pull in a corner like that's a true shutdown corner one would be amazing for our roster. And I'm not totally against it, right? Because I when times that we played against Gardner Minshew, like especially when we had Jimmy Garoppolo starting, I was like, man, I wish we had Gardner Minshew, man. That guy would be way better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know if he's better than Aiden O'Connell or not. I do like Aiden O'Connell. I think he's very good. I think that he hasn't developed all the way. He got thrown into a bad situation, and those last several games, he did really good. I think his touchdown to interception ratio was like 9 touchdowns to 1 interception. So there's very good and there's very bad, and we really haven't seen quite enough from him to make a huge determination. But they say, we brought in Gardner Minshew because AP and Telesco are not convinced on Aiden O'Connell. And I don't know if that's true or not. I think that we brought in Gardner Minshew as a contingency plan in case we're not able to move up and get a quarterback this year. Now, Jeffrey's talking about Michael Penix, that he doesn't think he'll be there at 13 either, right? And I really don't think he will. Now, if he does fall to 13, we need to grab him right then. You know, a lot of people are talking about trade back, this and that. Like, no, if that's your guy and you want him, pick him up at 13. You know, there's plenty of like this draft is really deep, you know, and especially in the tackles and corners, right? And so in the second and third round, there's still some tackles and corners that we can pick up at that point. Or who's to say Thayer Mumford isn't our guy moving forward, and we pick up somebody who would, you know, what's his name, Rosengarten, I want to say, from Washington, that we could pick him up and move him over guard. You know, I know that Graphic Raider keeps talking about that he sees him being a guard at the next level, and so I watched a little bit of tape on him, and I could kind of see what he's talking about. Where you know, moving him into the guard position, like he might really thrive at guard, and he might really kind of struggle at least for a year or two at tackle. So I mean, I think that those would be really good pickups at that point. And honestly, if we pick up either a tackle or corner at number 13 and then just go ahead and fill the holes, right? And these holes, I don't know what people are talking about. You know, people are like getting pissed off and they're like, why would we trade up? We have so many holes. We're not a quarterback away. That's not what I believe, man. You know, I believe that we have some good veterans on our roster that don't have a whole lot of years to just kind of mess around. Devontae Adams, you know, Max Crosby's still pretty young, and Christian Wilkins and things like that. But you know, I think that if we wait too long, the magic is going to kind of dissipate a little bit, and I think that we really need to go out guns blazing now. And these holes that we're looking at, right? We have there Mumford. So he can either play right tackle or right guard, or Colton Miller could move over to the right side, and then we end up with Mumford on the left. Either way, I think that we have two good tackles there. And so we either need to pick up a right guard or we pick up a right tackle, right? Okay, there's one hole. The other hole is a cornerback one. I'm really hoping that we end up picking up some of these guys in free agency, and I have a feeling that they're kind of waiting because the longer we wait, the lower the price is on guys like Stephon Gilmore. Stephon Gilmore is still out there. Xavier Howard is still out there. So there's some of these corners that are there. Dalton Reisner, he's a guard that we could pick up who would definitely be better than Van Roten, right? Or even if we pick up Roten on the cheap, he's already been a starter for us. You know, I think that he's already got good chemistry with the rest of the line, and I could see that going pretty well. I do want to upgrade from Van Roten. I don't want that to be mistaken, but you know, it's not like the end all. So if we go ahead and start cleaning up those holes, right? So, offensive line and corner one. What else do we have? Linebacker. I mean, Robert Spillane, he's a dog, and I think that he's going to do even better this year than he did last year. Devon Diablo, he's he's got some work to do, but he's really a great athlete. He really shows a lot of good promise. He makes a lot of good plays, and I really think that him and Spillane have some pretty good chemistry. You know, and then we got like Luke Masterson, Amari Burney. We got a couple of guys, you know, in the linebackers that I really think that we're doing pretty good there. It would be nice to pick up another one. There's some really nice ones in this draft. There's this guy, what's his name, Watson. I can't remember where he played for, but like he's like on all the mocks I keep seeing, he's going as like a seventh rounder. And this dude had 10 sacks. So I'm not really sure what it is about him because I haven't watched any tape on him. You know, maybe he lacks or misses some tackles or lacks in coverage or something like that. But man, with 10 sacks as a linebacker, that's pretty nice, man. You know, and so I could see us picking up somebody kind of later. There's several good linebackers in these later rounds that I could see us picking up. And then where else are the holes? Our safety room. I love our safety room, right? We got Marcus Epps, we got Trayvon Merrick. I think they're both doing fantastic. I think they'll both be starters this year. We have Chris Smith, which we picked up in the fourth round last year, and he didn't really get much playing time at all. But I like Chris Smith. He's, you know, this dude is his college tape looked pretty good. You know, I didn't watch a whole ton of it. I'll be honest with you. But what I did watch, like I liked a lot of what I saw out of him, and I could really see him being one of those guys that has a breakout year this year, next year. And then we got Paul Mal, right? He got, I think, only one pick, but he really he's got the measurables. He's got a lot of good things going for him, and I don't see us needing to pick up a safety. Now our defensive line, I don't got to talk about our defensive line, but I love to. We're stacked. We're absolutely stacked on the defensive line. We got Matt Crosby, Christian Wilkins, John Jenkins, Adam Butler, Tyree Wilson, Malcolm Coons. Like we got just beasts on that line, and we have depth. I can't ask for anything more there. Now, if we go to the offensive side of the ball, we did lose Josh Jacobs, and that really hurt. That was kind of a hit. Besides losing Josh Jacobs, got Zamir White. He really showed a lot of promise in those last 4 games, and then we picked up on Madison from the Vikings. And Madison, he's not a bell cow back, right? And a lot of people were like, "Oh, he doesn't replace Josh Jacobs. He's not good enough for that." That's not his job. That's not who he's replacing. I think that they're going to do more of a running back by committee this year. I also think that we might pick up a running back in the 4th or 5th round. There's some really good running backs out there that I would love to see us get. Bucky Irving or Ray Davis. Man, Ray Davis, if you haven't watched any tape on him, go check him out. He is a dog. But besides that, we got Abdullah, who's a great 3rd down back. We got Madison, who I could see being that kind of 2nd, 3rd down back. He can do. He's pretty good on reception yards. He's pretty good on the rush. He's strong. He's agile. And then we got Zamir White, and Zamir White is gonna be our number 1 guy. And we're gonna really see in those first couple of games if he's gonna come out on that same status that he was on those last couple of games, or his true colors might show, and at least we'll have a Madison to kind of back him up, and they'll rotate, right, and they'll have fresh legs, and I really think our running back room is going to be doing pretty good. We talked about the offensive line. I think really 1 or 2 pieces on there, especially if we picked up like a Dalton Reisner free agency. We're not left really hurting there. Tight ends, we picked up some what was his name? I can't remember his name, from the Bengals. We picked up that tight end from the Bengals. Now he's not really a great piece on catches. I mean, he's got some good measurables, and he's decent in the catching game. He's not going to be our number 1 tight end. Michael Mayer's going to be that guy, and I really think that this year he's really, really going to be that guy. But this other tight end that we picked up, I know his name's going to come to me as soon as I get off the live. I'm going to remember his name, right? But this kid, man, he's a really good blocker, right? And that's really good to have in our tight end room. We have a good blocker, set up our running backs to succeed, or these short receptions. And I can't really think of any other holes that we may have. So everybody's just kind of flipping out, like we can't move on from our 1st round picks. Like, we need to keep those valuable picks. And I don't see it, guys. Honestly, what I see is if we were to move up and we pick up Jaden Daniels, if he's available, right? If somebody will trade with us, I don't see us being in a position where we're going to miss those picks, right? If we go ahead and we trade, 3 first rounders and whatever else it takes, and he is our guy and he performs as good as most of us hope and believe that he will, we are not going to miss those picks at all, right? I think I found the comment section. I finally found the comment section. Look at that. All right, let me check this out. That's funny. Oh, I just put check. Oh, that's hilarious. Yep, there we go. All right, so I figured out the comments. I'm still trying to learn this whole thing with the lives, guys, so bear with me, right? But yeah, if we move on from all these picks, right, and even maybe a player, and Jane Daniels turns out to be nearly as good as we hope he is, we are not going to miss those picks at all. Like, I will not, because the quarterback position is the most important position on the field. Now, if we go ahead and we move on from these picks, man, and we get put in a position where he gets hurt bad, if we get put in a position where he gets to the NFL and it doesn't translate and he's not playing good, which I don't see Jane Daniels being a bust. I really don't, man. I've watched a lot of tape and highlights and a lot of stuff on him that really makes me believe that he's going to be that guy. But if he gets to the NFL and he just does not translate, yeah, we're going to miss those picks, and everybody's going to blame AP and Tom Telesco. And honestly, it could be a thing that makes them lose their job. And at this point, I honestly believe that AP is willing to gamble on Jaden Daniels because AP knows Jay Daniels, right? He coached him at Arizona State, and I think that he knows the guy's work ethic. I think he knows his heart, and I think he knows that he'll be a good scheme fit. Telesco, on the other hand, I don't really know that Tom Telesco is really sitting in that same position of really wanting to move on from all those picks year one, right? He made his big splash move already, the new GM, and he went out and signed Christian Wilkins, right? And Christian Wilkins, I mean, I want to talk about that for a second, right? Because Christian Wilkins is going to be just a huge difference maker on our defensive line. Now, there's some people that are out here saying, oh, we overpaid for him and he's not going to be worth it. He only had 9 sacks, da da da. And he did come from a pretty good defensive line where, okay, 9 sacks, cool, right? But if you look at his tackles, right, and his ability to stop the run game, that's really where he's going to be key for us. Because I don't know about you guys, but there's been several years where I've just been watching where teams just run the ball down our throat. And I am sick of it, man. It's like once teams figure that out on us and they just start run, all of a sudden it's like first down, first down, first down. It's like, 2nd and 3, 2nd and 2. Like, and it's just like, it drives me crazy. I'm like, get the run, man. They're going to run it again. And then they run it again. And sure enough, they get a first down. And there I am pissed off yelling at my TV, right? I told you guys he was going to run again. Oh, man. So, like, I really think that the addition of Christian Wilkins in the run game itself is going to be huge. Now, also with them double teams, right? You watch, there's so many clips where you see Max Crosby. He's always getting held. He's getting double teamed. He's getting triple teamed. They're just everybody on Max Crosby and we'll handle the rest, right? That's not the case anymore. Christian Wilkins is one of the fastest interior defensive linemen to get to the quarterback, right? So if you can't double both of them, you got 5, maybe 6 blockers max. If you double both of those guys, you're going to have Malcolm Kuntz, Tyree Wilson, John Jenkins, Adam Butler. You're going to have one of these guys just flying in and getting the quarterback. So it's really going to change Max Crosby's game. I think Max Crosby is a great addition to Christian Wilkins' game. I have a feeling that those guys, man, they're going to be like lamb and tuna fish. I think that they're really going to get in this position where they start really working together. And I think that we're going to see that chemistry just grow and turn into this beautiful thing, right? And that might just be the hopeful Raider in me, but I don't see any kind of scenario where that's not what happens. I really think that that's what's going to happen, and that, they're just going to tear through offensive lines, man. And I think that we're going to see production go up on both of their stat sheets and their disruption as well. So let me know in the chat, man, if you guys have something else you want to talk about, let me know, right? Because this isn't just all about me and my thoughts. I want to hear from you guys. And that's why I went ahead and went live on this subject, because I don't feel like I'm the expert in this subject at all. right? Because not only are we talking about years where I wasn't really following the Raiders as closely as I have been the last 4 years, um, but we're also talking about picks that went to the Chargers, and I don't know anything about those players on the Chargers, man. I only see what happens when we play against them. That's why I liked DeAndre Carter. I was happy that we had that pickup because there's so many games where we're playing against the Chargers. I'm like, man, we got beat by Carter, and that's something that I'm also wondering about. Are we going to pick up Carter again? They changed the kickoff rules. He's really good in the return game. We didn't see a lot of production out of him this year, but I really think with the new rules, he might be a guy that we want out there for that. Not only that, but we lost Hunter Renfro, and DeAndre Carter is historically a slot receiver, and I think that he would do great. Now, that's another thing, right? Is that I really think that we're going to have a lot of Devontae Adams being in the slot. Devontae Adams playing in the slot under Luke Getsy makes a lot of sense, right? He had a lot of production in the slot with Green Bay when Luke Getsy was over there working with him in Green Bay. I don't think he's going to be like our biggest slot receiver. Shout out to Drew Dizzo 86, man. Welcome to True Raider Podcast. I'm glad you're here. And also, if you guys haven't hit that subscribe button, please hit that subscribe. It's a new channel. I'm just getting started. I only started about, I don't know, something like 6-7 weeks ago. And just trying to get this thing going. So I'm glad you guys are here. Thanks for the love. But yeah, I mean, also, there's a couple of receivers in this draft that I honestly think that we're going to have to go out and get a receiver because right now we only have 5 receivers on our roster. And only having 5 receivers on our roster, that doesn't provide us with a lot of depth. I mean, there's some sets where you put 5 receivers out there, like we're going to have every man out there. I don't think that that's the way it's going to be. I'm kind of hoping that we pick up on maybe another free agent signing. Honestly, I'm not familiar with who's out there in the free agency as far as receivers. But there's several guys in this draft that are in the later rounds that I could see us maybe picking up on. And I'm also seeing this trend, of short receivers. And we got Trey Tucker. He's a speedster, and I've seen a lot of people saying we should go get Xavier Worthy. I'm seeing people saying we should get Malik Washington. And while there's the up to those guys, like Worthy, he's got a lot of drop issues, but he's super fast. But we already have our speedster. Malik Washington's like 5'8", and if we have too many receivers under 6 foot out there, I see that being problematic. I think that we really need to pick up on a guy like maybe a Taj Washington or who's that other guy? I can't think of his name right now. I think that we need somebody who's going to be more of a red zone threat. One of them 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" receivers that maybe is not that fast, but can get up and get those high balls and pause if necessary. And really pull down some stuff in the red zone for us. Because besides that, I mean, okay, Devontae Adams, he's great. We are where he's at. Jacoby Myers, that is a dude that I got a jersey on the way. Actually, I really like Jacoby Myers. He's not very fast. He's not really tall. He's a decent route runner. Devontae Adams speaks highly of him, and I think that he's a great person to have at that wide receiver too. I'd like to see him play a lot of slot stuff this year as well, right? Maybe do some rotation in that. Devontae in the slot, Jacoby Myers in the slot, and Trey Tucker, right? Trey Tucker is going to be one of those real breakout guys for us, I think. I think that he's fast. He's got some good. He's got a great ability to. Sorry, hold on. He's got a great ability to catch those deep balls. I think that he had a couple of spots this year that the ball bounced around a little bit. Got called out of bounds. There was one in the end zone where I was convinced they were going to call it back, but they called it a touchdown. We got lucky on that one. And I want to look real quick at Harrison Bryant. There's that tight end's name, Harrison Bryant. I couldn't think of it, man. I'm pulling up the roster right now because who else do we have at wide receiver? DJ Turner. He's another guy that's short, fast. I don't know if maybe they're looking at him being more of that special teams guy, doing those returns. He's a speedster. I know he kind of struggled a little bit with dropping returns, but he got that fumble for us. I believe that was against the Chargers, where a guy caught it for the return and he came in, boom, punched it out, and it put us in great goal position. Um, who else have we got at wide receiver? Help me out, guys. There's one, can't think of him. I'm looking for the player roster right now. Go. Yeah, I can't think of who our other receiver is, right? Which is bad, right? Because if I can't think of him, that means that he's not somebody who's being very productive for us. And I really think that we need to get some more depth in there at receiver. So we got Trey Tucker, DJ Turner, we've got Jacoby Myers. Oh, Christian Wilkinson. Now, Christian Wilkerson. We got Christian Wilkins and Christian Wilkerson. That's a little funny. Um, he did have some decent production. I don't really know his stats, but there was some good plays that I saw personally. Let me see. Christian Wilkerson stats. See it. So I don't think he really played for us a lot. He didn't even play in the regular season. I want to say that was preseason where he had some plays. Dang, that was preseason. Yeah, he didn't even have regular season stats for us. Now for New England, 2021, he had 2 touchdowns, 42 receiving yards, 4 receptions, 3 games played. So I don't see him being one of those guys that turns out to be a starter for us. So what are we going to do at receiver? Do you guys have any receivers that you've been looking at and maybe some of your mock drafts, or you've seen some highlights on them that you're really wanting to pick up? Let me know down in the chat, man. Hit me up on that because, I really want to be able to watch some more tape on some of these guys. I really haven't been thinking about receiver too much until the last couple of days. And so that's something that I really want to dive into a little bit deeper. We only got 12 days, and actually we're at the end of this day, right? So pretty much 11 days until the NFL draft, man. I don't know if you guys are excited, but I'm getting really excited. I'm trying to debate whether I should go live for that or not. Actually, the 25th is a Thursday, right? Jeez, man, I might have to call into work that day. Or I might be watching at work. Yeah, if my boss is watching this, yeah, I'll be watching at work. I got a cool boss, man. I'm really happy about that. Yeah, so the 25th is a Thursday, and so dang, I don't know how it's gonna work out. Maybe I'll just put out some content afterwards, give a little bit of my thoughts or breakdown on our first round pick. Maybe I'll go live for day 2. We'll see, guys. Let me know, if you want me to go live for that, hit me up in the comments or hit me up on the comments on other videos. I do always check all the comments. I reply. If you got positive things to say, negative things to say, to me, it doesn't matter because my opinion is not the end all. I'm a very open-minded person. So, I'm not going to think that, oh, this is my belief and so you're wrong, and be one of those guys that says you just don't know football, because that's not where I stand. I'm really open to new information. That's how I got into Jaden Daniels, right? Because I wasn't even he wasn't even on my radar, and I don't watch college football, but I had seen a thing here and there of him, and all I thought was, oh, he runs the ball too much and he's too thin. But then when he mentioned AP and Marvin Lewis is our assistant head coach, in his Heisman Trophy speech, it got my attention. And then it's like everybody's like, oh, it's AP's guy. It's AP's guy. And I love Antonio Pierce, man. I really think that he's going to be one of those, as long as he doesn't mess it up in these first 2 years, I think he's going to be one of those coaches that goes down as one of the Raiders' great head coaches, right? I really believe that. And so when he started talking about, everybody was like, "Oh, it's AP's guy." I started looking into him and I watched a couple highlights here and there, and I thought, same thing. This guy, he's really thin and he runs much. But then I started watching more and I started watching people's tape breakdowns and I started seeing a lot of good things out of him. And honestly, like, I see why a lot of people are projecting him as going number 2. I really do. I really think that if he was in last year's draft, I don't know. I don't think he's better than CJ Stroud. Maybe. I wanted CJ Stroud pretty bad, right? That was the first time that I got attached to a quarterback in the draft. I was like, man, we need to go get CJ Stroud. And then to find out later that Dave Ziegler wanted him, but Josh McDaniels didn't. Of course, Josh McDaniels wanted Bryce Young. Of course he did, man. And CJ Stroud really just, the only thing that I'm glad on why we didn't go get him is because if we had picked up CJ Stroud and he did well, we'd still be stuck with Josh McDaniels. That guy was killing our franchise, man. He really was. So I'm grateful that this last season went the way it did. But man, CJ Stroud was good, right? And so that was the first time I really felt like we need to go get this guy. We really do. He's going to be a good quarterback at the next level. And sure enough, he is. Jaden Daniels, out of all the players in this draft, is the one that really looks like that to me, right? It gives me that same feeling that I got with CJ Stroud, where I'm like, man, this guy is just, he's going to translate to the NFL. He's going to come, he's going to ball out. And like, okay, Caleb Williams, I see him being more of like a Kyler Murray or Dak Prescott, right? Which those guys are great quarterbacks. I don't see him being a Patrick Mahomes comp. Michael Penix Jr., he's good. Some people are comping him to like Warren Moon, which if that's the case, like, sign me up, right? I think he's good. He's got a great ball. He's got great accuracy. And he's fast, and he doesn't choose to run first, which is great. His injury history is very concerning. But yeah, with him, it's like, I feel like he's one of those guys that he might do pretty good and he might not. And JJ McCarthy, he's actually, the more I watch on him, he's actually pretty good, right? I also feel the same way that I do with McCarthy as I do with Penix, where he's good and he could be good, but we'll wait and see. And Bo Nix, like, don't even give me Bo Nix, man. All I see is Jimmy Garoppolo. That's what I see, man. I don't want anything to do with Bo Nix. Let's see who else is up there in those top quarterbacks. I mean, really, that's all I'm thinking about right now. Oh, Drake May. Drake May is getting comped to Herbert, and I think mostly it's because, like, he looks like Herbert. He's got the measurables like Herbert, and he's pretty good, right? Like, if we picked up on Drake May at 13, yeah, send it, man. I'd be happy to have him. If we traded up and got rid of like 2 or 3 first-round picks in order to get him, I don't know, man. I don't really know if he's that guy. I don't know if he's that guy for us. More will be revealed. But with Jaden Daniels, man, I really see that this guy's going to translate, man. And clip this and throw it in my face if I'm wrong. I don't believe I'm going to be wrong. So we're coming up on an hour, guys, man. I've just kind of beaten this topic to death. You guys let me know, man. Hit me up in the comments, send me a message. You can find me on Facebook under True Raider. I'm also on Instagram. I'm not on Instagram quite as much. Honestly, I don't know, man. I don't really vibe with Instagram too good. I'm trying to keep up with posts on there, but I just don't ever go and scroll through Instagram. That's not my thing. I'm just more into Facebook, and that's just where it is, right? And so you can find there. You could hit me in the comments. Let me see. Oh, I'll throw down my email here too, right? It's also on my channel, but it's trueraider27 at gmail.com. Let me know, man, if there's stuff that you guys want to talk about, if there's a certain topic, maybe a video that you're like, man, nobody else is talking about this. Hit me up, man. Let me know. I'll check that out and I'll see, if it's something I know anything about, or if it's not, I'll do some research about it and we'll make it happen, man. So you guys, um, shout out to you guys for being here. I'm going to start doing some more lives. I'm also going to do some of the shorter videos. If you check my channel, most of my videos are between 10 and 15 minutes. Um, I'm not always eligible to go live, but it just, I don't know, man. I got a busy life, man. I really do, right? And I'm trying to make some more time because I love creating content. I love watching content on YouTube, and I'll catch you guys on the next one, man. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Uh, See you later.